Bob Kravitz from The Athletic. So, Robert, how are you?
I'm fabulous. How are you, Jim?
Great, sir. You have been out and about, busy here of late. Colts new coach. You've been at Indiana. You've been bouncing around, man.
Yeah, it's been interesting. We waited a month, so what the hell? Yeah, but yeah, look, the poor guy. I got to tell you, the poor guy looked exhausted. He looked like he was dead on his feet. He's been through the ringer with the Super Bowl and all these 14-hour interviews. And I'm getting a ton of crap on my column because a lot of people only read the first paragraph, and I mentioned that he looked dead on his feet. So they're like, yeah, you'd look worse if you, I'm like, the point I was making, if you read the second paragraph, was that I don't want a song and dance man running the Colts. They've had a lot of those guys who are, great with the media, and they're great. Yeah, they're great with the media. They're talkative. They're accessible, the whole bit. This guy seemed like you didn't see any personality, but again, he's been through the ringer, and I just care if the guy wins games. So read the second paragraph if you do read the piece in The Athletic, okay?
Well, most people just read a headline, Bob. You're lucky they read the paragraph, not your stuff, just in general. It happens all the time. I sent a tweet out the other day that I got a lot of grief on that I'm still laughing about, but I hear you. But yeah, what cracked me up through this process is they had to keep Jeff Saturday as a member of the final candidates, like all the way through. And I'm like,
I know.
Come on. I'm like, stop with this charade, man. Are you kidding me? Would you quit with this charade?
When you look at the resumes of the other candidates, and they've all been coaching for 10, 15, 20 years, it's just absurd to me. Again, I love Jeff Saturday. Jeff Saturday is the coolest guy going. I don't have a single problem with that dude. He's aces in my book, as they say. Well, nobody says that, but I just said that. But there's no earthly way he was one of the 4 best candidates for this job. And what it tells me is that Jim has kind of come to his senses, Irsay. And this was Chris Ballard's guy. Jim was on board, certainly. But look, if they had hired Saturday, that would have created a dynamic that would have been really, really problematic for the Indianapolis Colts.
Without question. Shane Steichen, the guy they got nabbed from the Eagles, the former offensive coordinator there, his credentials seem pretty nice, pretty good.
Yeah. Well, what they really needed, and I talked to some people outside the organization, and they all said they need a young guy who's got quarterback, training in training quarterbacks, coaching quarterbacks. And he's done it. What's so impressive about this guy is he did it with Phillip Rivers, who's, again, got the mobility of a lawn chair. He did it with Herbert. And then he did it with Jalen Hurts, who's a completely different type of quarterback, really a multi-purpose, dual threat quarterback. And he's had massive success with all 3 of those very different kinds of quarterbacks. So, it makes me feel like he can work with whatever kind of quarterback comes in here. I am thinking more and more that it may be Will Levis, because I think Will Levis has the physical tools. I think that Anthony Richardson does too, but he's a couple of years away from starting in this league. So I tend to think it's going to be Levis, but with the Indianapolis Colts, who the hell knows?
Yeah, we'll certainly find out. Indiana basketball has certainly had a good turn of fortune. They reached what I call a line of demarcation a while back, And since then, it has been peaches and rainbows for the most part. Not always beautiful, but getting a win at Michigan last, which was, you call it kind of an ugly win, but it's a beautiful win, really, when you go on the road and you win a game like that. That's actually a thing of beauty.
And they played kind of their B game. I didn't think they played a great game, but
no offense.
But they went on the road. They used their defense in the last however many minutes it was that Michigan went scoreless.
5
minutes, and they gutted it out. And that to me might be the most significant win of the season. You could talk about beating Purdue and some of the other nice wins they've had during this stretch, but I just thought going in there, playing your B game, winning with toughness down the stretch against a team that desperately needed a victory to stay in any kind of contention for the NCAA tournament was really, really impressive.
Absolutely. And of course, a big part of that, Trace Jackson Davis, his play. You asked Mike Woodson the other day in the press conference about him, and here's what Mike had to say.
Well, I just think the maturity of him, when we started a little over a year and a half ago, he's grown. I thought he was great last season, on both ends of the floor. I go back to when I took the job and I was watching film on him. There was just a lot of holes in his game to me, just mainly from the defensive standpoint of not blocking shots as athletic as he was, and not plugging the holes from a defensive standpoint. These are things that I saw from a defensive standpoint. And then offensively, I just thought he needed to learn how to play with more juice, more energy. And I thought he did that last season. And this season, it's just at another level, man. I mean, he's doing things, I think we put him in position to handle the ball because I did this in the pros with guys like Al Horford, Josh Smith, Melo, that could rebound the ball and initiate your break offensively that gives you early strikes that way. And he's really been good in that area and been able to make plays off the bounce himself individually. So, I just don't see a lot of holes in his game now. Everybody talk about, well, he doesn't shoot jump shots, which he does everything else. He's playing at a high level, man. And hey, we're going to need that the rest of the way because right now we're still shorthanded in terms of bigs, Logan and Race being out. It's hard to find.
Mike Woodson responding to Bob Kravitz's question in a presser the other day, but he is definitely playing at a different level than he was at the start of the season. I know he was dealing with some back issues, but there's so much more that has gone into this change for him, for this team. You don't go to this level all of a sudden. It's just a combination of things. I think that they made the decision mentally. They had that players only meeting. Obviously, coaching continues. They're still dealing with injuries of other guys. They've learned to kind of play without them. I think they've learned to play with what they have, and those guys have kind of settled in. Trey Galloway settled into a role. Miller Kopp seems to have settled into a role to where he's expanded it somewhat and playing. He played great defense against Michigan, especially in the second half against Jet Howard. So this team is really kind of finding its roles, it seems.
Yes, absolutely. And to me, this is like a continuation of the second half of the Michigan game in the Big Ten tournament. And just generally the way they played and the way Trace played down the stretch of the season, especially in the tournament, the Big Ten tournament last year, and the short stay they had in the NCAA tournament. He's taken it to an entirely new level. I didn't know if he had it in him, but he is playing so hard, so passionately. And I give Mike Woodson a ton of credit. Not only has Mike been able to retain him, but he's been able to coach him and give credit to the assistant coaching staff, whoever specifically works with the bigs. And I don't know who that would be, but yeah, they've done a fabulous job with Trace. And I asked Mike later in the press conference about his legacy, about Trace's legacy. And I think coming into this season, his legacy was really good player on a really bad team. And I think, having stuck around here for another year, I think his legacy hopefully will be that he was the best player on a really good team that made noise in the NCAA tournament.
Absolutely. And I think, I don't know why I've been having this feeling, if they can get this double bye, I think they have, well, I know they have as good a chance to win the Big Ten tournament as they've ever had, because
Agreed.
there's not a team in the conference they can't beat. They've shown that. And they'll have them all on a neutral floor in Indiana. No, it's in Chicago.
Right.
They'll have them all on a neutral floor, so it won't matter. So I think it's going to be very interesting, and this could be a special season for them in that regard, since Indiana has never won a Big Ten tournament.
That's right. That's right. We all remember what Bob Knight thought of the Big Ten tournament and conference tournaments in general. But yeah, I mean, who's great in the Big Ten now? Purdue is clearly the class of the conference, but we're starting slowly to see a few chinks in the armor. It seems like when you press them, things get a little scattered. And look, you knew that at some point the freshman guards were going to play like freshman guards, and specifically Braden Smith. Now, do I think he'll get it together? Yeah. Do I think Purdue is going to make some noise? Yeah. But I don't think they're a dominant team necessarily. I think they're just a damn good team in a conference where there are no dominant teams. So, yeah, I'd love to see IU and Purdue meet in the Big Ten tournament if that's possible through the brackets.
Well, I think it should be very possible, especially if Indiana manages to finish second. That
Right.
should put them on the opposite side of the bracket, with on course to meet, both getting the double buys. So
Wouldn't that be something?
And that would be oh my God, can you imagine? It would just be yes, that would be a first. That would be another first. And
So
I don't.
My only question now is, how do they reintroduce Xavier Johnson? I don't know exactly when he's supposed to come back, but you've had Jalen Hood-Schifino playing at such a high level, except for some road games where he hasn't played particularly well. But hey, he's a freshman. You got to expect that. But how are they going to put Hood-Schifino back off the ball and put Xavier at the point? Do they keep JHS at the point? I think Mike Whitson's got some really interesting questions he's got to answer here in the next couple of weeks, assuming that Xavier is back in due time.
Yeah, I was talking about that last night with someone. I'm wondering, do you play Jalen Hood-Schifino and X at the same time, or do you keep them separate? Because Jalen Hood seems to have really grown into his role as being that the guy, and it is really working with Trace Jackson Davis right now. They're the best. I mean, you've heard a lot of people say they might be the best 1-2 punch in the country at the moment.
Right. No, I would agree. I mean, I don't know all the 1-2 punches in the country, but they're certainly impressive. And yeah, so I just that's gonna be a tough question for Mike. How you pull that off. I mean, their bench has been okay, but maybe you move Xavier to the bench and have him, run that group. So I don't really know, but that's why Mike Woodson gets paid more money than I do.
Absolutely. And another,
Just a little.
Trace Jackson Davis and Zach Edey.
Yeah.
Trace just won his a Big Ten record, 4th consecutive Player of the Week honor. And throughout the year early on, people had just coronated Zach Edey as every player of the year and everything. And I'm like, man, I think they need to hold up on that. And the Trace's resurgence as he continues to come, I think his play is more dominant than Zach Edey's is, but people think I'm a homer when I say that because I cover Indiana. I'm not. But
I think Edey was running away with it. I think Trace has closed the gap. That said, if the season continues on this particular trajectory, I still think Edey wins Player of the Year. He needs. I mean, it's something weird has got to happen for Edey not to win it. But I would agree that Trace has come on like gangbusters, and he has closed the gap dramatically.